Well, hello and welcome to Verdicts in Vogue. I'm Cristina Perez, and today I have Sean Simpson with me.
Morning.
Sean, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
We're at TBI Med Legal, and it's actually where we first met.
That's right.
Right?
Like 3 or 4 years ago.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, time flies. We've had a lot of fun, a lot of experience, and a lot of history in the 3 or 4 years, whatever it's been.
We have since that time. So we were introduced, I think it was myself and Hope Ortiz, who works with me,
Yeah.
who's here. She's sitting over there. Yeah. We came to TBI Med Legal as a attendee. This year,
Yeah.
I'm speaking. We ended up meeting you through Amy Berry.
Amy Scraggs, now
Amy
Berry.
Scraggs.
Yeah, she married Scott Berry. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The program, and that was like 2022 or 2023. Was that during COVID? The end of COVID, I think.
I think it was just right after
Right
COVID.
after.
I don't remember wearing masks. So yeah.
Neither. But it was at the Hyatt, and oddly enough, we went to dinner at Nobu, and that's where we had another dinner last night.
I know.
Small world.
Isn't
Different
it?
hotel, but yes, it's still kind of close.
And I remember after our dinner at Nobu last time, Amy came and she picked me up. She actually called me. I was walking into my room and she sent me a message saying, "Hey, let's go out, get your stuff." And so I walked through the room and then I went, I walked upstairs and then turned around when I came back down, got in the car and she was like, "You know what? That Sean Simpson said he wants to he wants to work a case with you."
Oh, wow.
She was like, he goes, "Hey, well, you know what? I would like that." And then we have since then have had 2 cases together that we were working on.
Yeah.
And you also were nice enough to let me jump on your trial earlier this year. So
That's right. That's right. I remember because when I met at that dinner with Amy,
yeah,
from just talking for a couple hours at dinner, I could tell. I said, she's sharp and she's hungry. And like John Morgan says, you can't teach hungry.
Or he has 2 books, right? You can't teach hungry and you can't teach vision.
Yeah.
I've read those both.
And I see some young lawyers. I'm going, you're a really nice person, and you might be a great paralegal, but you just don't have that desire to get in front of an audience, a jury, and really push for your client. You don't seem passionate. But that's what I told Amy. I said, "Wow, man, she's some young up and coming lawyer. It's great to meet her. If she has any case she wants to work up." But I remember that. I forgot about that. So that's what started all this. We had some good cases.
We've had some really good cases and some very good results. So we just finalized one of our first ones, which was a TBI case of a gentleman that was walking up stairs without a railing and then fell and has been
the Airbnb
case. Yep. Yeah. And so we were able to do that, and that was a good result. We can't talk about it because there is a confidentiality clause that we're second, but I know the client was super happy, and he's actually can't wait to take us all to lunch.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
good.
he did.
And they're back in Ohio or Wisconsin, I think.
They're in Indiana.
Indiana. Hoosier State.
So he's and he was super happy, and he was referred to us from some attorney out of some TLA that heard of my name, and so with that case, it was a really fun experience too. We had some warts in that case.
Yeah.
And but it was a good way of dealing with them, and I think the best way. I don't know if in that case we had not only an attorney who didn't understand that when you go to an Airbnb you can have 1 or 2 cocktails is not a big deal, but he hung his hat on that 1 or 2 cocktails.
Yeah. Luckily, the family who was there, and I remember the deposition of one of the daughters who had young, like a 2 and 4-year-old child. And I said to her, and was like Mother Mary, she was about a 10.5 on a 1 to 10 scale of credibility. I said, "So you saw your father-in-law just before it happened, right?" And said, "And your kids were around there, right?" I said, "Would you have any concern about your father-in-law picking up your kids and playing with her?" She said, "Not at all." Yeah. And I could tell that she was kind of a hovering helicopter mother, which she loved her kids. So she would not have let her kids be close to her dad if he was intoxicated. And the thing is that then the defense, I remember the defense story. I remember him getting all riled up. He's like, I said, "Look, the guy had 2 cocktails over 5 hours.
Sure.
He wasn't shit-faced drunk. I was like, they were trying to say, oh, he was drinking." So, that's kind of what people do when they go to a family reunion at a big Airbnb. They pay a bunch of money for it. And it's a beautiful, that was like a 3,000, 4,000 square foot, beautiful home.
It was a really nice home in Tucson. And with that situation, they brought on a toxicologist that was trying to do some type of analysis from the time that he went into the hospital from the back to the time. So he was basically creating a timeline. Our toxicologist refuted that, but that was a big point of contention, and he thought that was going to, like, he was going to convince the jury. And you brought up a really good point, saying he's not driving a vehicle, he's walking.
Yeah.
It's a different standard.
On vacation.
On vacation.
And he paid for a place to relax and have fun, and they're the ones that left the railing off.
Well, through the investigation, we learned that they took the railing off. And if he would have been, let's say he was walking up the stairs and there was a railing, our argument was that it wouldn't happen.
Would have been injured. If he stumbled, he would have caught himself.
Or if he was injured, not to the point that he was injured. Which
is another, I remember now, the experts piled on. The defense was like human factors expert, home safety expert. You know, they had both those going. A lot of times you get one or the other. You get like a safety, human factors expert, or a visibility expert. But they had both. And the thing is, luckily, when I went there and spent a couple hours in that backyard, there were a lot of things that weren't right. So I felt pretty good after.
Well, that property happened to be on an elevated. It was elevated because it had a beautiful view of the Tucson skylight. So that was and it can be confusing. And you went down. Yeah. I couldn't make it to the site inspection, but you went down there and had a great view and a good talk with our expert.
Well, there were probably 6 sets of stairs and probably 40 or 50 stairs total. And very few of them had the same riser or tread length. It was just all mixed match and kind of hodgepodge. Mm-hmm. So it was dangerous even if it had a railing, it was still dangerous, but without a railing, it was really dangerous.
And now with that, I mean, because we had tons and tons of pictures from our investigator and from the investigator and from the real estate photos and so forth. But what a difference it made when you actually went down there. Is that something that you recommend that attorneys do?
Oh, something, yeah. So the first thing most any trialer I know wants to do is truck crash, slip and fall, air conditioner falls off a roof, job site, injury. You want to go there. You want to see it. You want to, and get oriented. So you can kind of set your plan for depositions and everything. It's nice to know. Sometimes at depositions you end up saying, okay, can you help me figure out which way is north and west down here? No, if you know, you can come and say, okay, this is north, right? And they'll say yes. So you can take control I can't talk about how much, even getting to tow yards and scenes immediate after car crashes. You want to, 2 places you want to get right away is the scene of the accident crash and the tow yards where any of the cars went.
Yeah, I've learned early on that you want to go there because sometimes unless you're there, you can't really visualize it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can see and really understand how something happened. We had that recently on a case where someone was walking above a business and there was a door and we couldn't understand how the guy fell through a latch. And then it wasn't until we went to the scene, we had to force an inspection. But then we were able to understand, okay, this is how it happened. There was this part that you couldn't have seen or that didn't latch correctly.
Yeah.
But the same, I know that you're a big proponent because we've done this together on our other case that we have going right now, is going to the client's home.
Yeah. We're small plug for trial guides. There's another book we're working on right now. It's a multi-author book, and it's called Winning Discovery. And it's a lot of the formulas behind what's leading to a lot of these really noteworthy verdicts that are like full value for justice. And things are changing a lot with 5-10 years ago, the billboard said recovering millions for our clients. Now the billboards say recovering billions for our clients, which is true over cumulative, and that has an effect on jurors in the area figuring like, oh, well, now it's billions, so asking for millions, that's not very much.
Sure. That's
one little factor. The whole book's full of all kinds of things that, but anyway, you can't immerse yourself too much in a case, go into their home, go to the hospital, go to the tow yards I mentioned, go to the scene for sure, and just go to neighbors' houses, ask the neighbors, sometimes neighbors and the counter clerk at the restaurant they go to or the dry cleaner they go to, make the best 10 or 15 minute witnesses that jurors go, oh, wow, even the dry cleaner person noticed a big difference in their life.
Absolutely. Well, we did that with we did this with and we're doing it with the other case that we're currently working on, where we sat with the family for a whole afternoon, talking to all of the kids, talking to the parents, looking at pictures, looking at the bedroom, looking to see, and really getting an understanding of what this person, in this case, it's a young adult, was a teenager at the time when the injury happened, but he kind of seeing what his life is like now to try to understand and then tell his story.
That's the only way to do it.
Sure.
And a lot of times you end up it takes longer because you take a videographer with you who makes a day in the life video and kind of captures some of that so you can show it to a jury, because it's hard in court to say in words, tell us what your average day is like. Well, it takes me long to put my shirt on because my one arm is fake now, my prosthetic arm, I got to put it through, talk about when they have to clean their prosthetic arm, but hearing about it is one thing. Seeing it is like, it really hits, sometimes you see jurors that go, oh my God, I had no idea.
And, I think it's also really important to mention that in a situation like that, because I had a case where the person was injured and ended up with a prosthetic. And we had one videographer that went out and did a day in the life video. But we ended up scratching that particular video because it made him look like
really?
the way it was done, it made him look like a victim.
Oh, yeah, you got to be careful with that.
So those things are good to show, but also having an idea of, okay, well, we want to make them look like that, not that they're suffering and you want pity, but the fact that they're going through and being empowered.
It's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And because you got a close cousin of that is you got to avoid exaggeration. And sometimes the exaggeration is what makes too much pity. But sometimes you're going, this is not exaggerated, but it looks exaggerated. Mm-hmm. So then you have to redo it to see if you can say, hey, you know what? Can you try to be try to be better than you are? It's hard to have to do that, but sometimes you do. And then,
well, we ended up redoing it in a different light. And we ended up using it, but not being afraid. I mean, one, it was okay. Because as a newer attorney, you're like, well, that doesn't look as well if I want. Not being afraid to talk to the person who's doing the video and saying, look, this is not right yet. Or not being afraid, like, okay, we already spent X amount of money because these things aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And then being like, okay, having enough courage to say, this is, take control of your case.
I could make a huge message to anybody on that. If it's first timers or second timers doing settlement videos, I've learned through experience, you got to be there. And I'll give one quick example. I mean, I had an experienced videographer, and I'm not naming any names, but some are better than others. But he asked me, we were shooting my client who's in a brain injury recovery center, and he was going through his therapies. He had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. His whole day was, trying his whole body. And it was, anyway, and I'm sitting there and the videographer says, hey, he's going to take a 10-minute break. He's worn out. Should I film the break? I said, oh yeah. And sure enough, he goes on break and his mom's there, and the Jim Gems came out of the break. His mom goes, how's it going? She goes, oh man, this is so hard, man. He just laid it out during the break when his mom said, how's it going, after 3 hours of physical therapy or different therapies, because they have him at a computer or simulator. He's trying to learn to drive again. He's like, you got to remap your brain after a brain injury, and it takes a lot of work. It's really, and man, if you can capture some of that, and that little break thing where the videographer, I said, so if I wouldn't have been here, you'd probably skip the break. And that was one of our best little gems came out of that. So
that's really important.
Yeah. Just little things like that.
And is there any other, so I learned today, earlier today.
Just today?
I learned earlier today. Yeah, it was actually earlier today. I shouldn't say newer attorneys. I should say less experienced attorneys. Because
I don't know if I like that any better.
Really?
You're less experienced.
No, I mean, for those, for
but it's usually true if they're younger.
They're younger, but there's something like for myself when I started in a different field. So I started, I've been practicing for 15 years, but I didn't get into personal injury and plaintiff's work until probably 7-8 years in.
So you know tax and criminal too?
I was doing bankruptcy. And so I was doing predominantly bankruptcy, and then I was also managing, helping to manage my firm.
That's a big jump, big switch.
Big switch. And so I started, and it kind of fell in my lap, right? I wasn't looking to be a plaintiff's lawyer. It just turned out that a mom sought me out for something else.
Lucky for you.
I know.
To join our world of craziness and wonder.
Well,
what we do is crazy, but we do wonderful things, really.
I mean, you have to really want to do it because you have to really want to be that voice for your clients. In that situation, it was a mom who just called me, and she said she had a meeting with me for student loan debt, and then it turned out that her son had gotten hurt, and so he ended up having a TBI and a depressed skull fracture when he escaped from a facility. So that was right out of the bat my first case.
Like a cross referral from a bankruptcy or tax client says, I got a son, and that happens to me quite a bit too. And sometimes people think that lawyers do everything.
Oh, I know.
I say, I'm not really good at landlord-tenant stuff. I need to refer you to somebody who does that. And said, would you have a podiatrist who does only feet, work on your heart? Probably not. And they go, oh, really? I said, yeah, we lawyers specialize.
Well, but the good thing is that when clients do, I mean, that's been our best referral source, old past clients that call me for whatever it may be. And then some things I can help, and then other things I can help. But when I cannot help, I always have an attorney that I can refer and say, hey, you know what, why don't you call this person, let them know that I called, and they'll be better equipped to help you, because I don't do landlord-tenant law. I'm not going to put together a business contract for you. But I know if you're hurt or if you're injured, I'm going to be able to handle that case quickly. My office does it regularly.
This is another great thing about these conferences and all the listservs for AIAG and for ATAA, the Truck Academy, and they all, I mean, the resources to be able to do that. So you don't have to, so you don't have to blindly refer them to somebody on the internet, which they could find themselves. You can call somebody and say, hey, you know somebody down in Atlanta? You call Joe Fried or somebody. And the connections are just, I mean, those are the real value. The priceless thing, these programs for me is the connections you make.
Sure.
You get some nice nuggets, but I'll warn you, the older you get, when you get, the nuggets are fewer and fewer, which is a good thing, I guess.
Well, I try to tell myself, so from all of these conferences that I've started doing, more and more, when I think the conference that I did, I had just probably done my second or third conference when we first met. I wasn't doing, I was always only doing local. Now, I do national stuff. But when we started, I know, right? It's not funny. But so now I also still am very involved in my state TLA, but I also I'm involved in the national. Yeah.
So you get roots back at home, but then you reach out and get more, expand your horizons.
And it lets you see how other people are doing. Or it can also be like what I did recently, where you were like, hey, Cristina, I have this trial, come jump in on the trial. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to drop whatever I can and jump on this trial, which turned out to be a lot longer than we anticipated. But it was fun. Those are some nuggets that I've learned. And I even ended up receiving a gift from one of the jurors after.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, it's funny. Even when you get a low verdict, I apologize again for that. It's funny. I come over and help you in your case, and you do great. You come and help me in my case, and we get a dud.
No, don't say that it's my fault. We won, but we still won. We won, but we didn't. I mean, we could have done better. But in that situation, I mean, without getting into we did the best that we could do, and hearing from the jury later on where they were initially, because they were really high, right? It was. And they were really high. And there
was that one guy who was a business owner and a director in Hollywood, and he's going to Mexico. And
he's the one that sent me a gift.
Oh, is he?
He's the one that sent me a gift. And he liked he told me that he liked the cross-examination of the radiologist that I did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think you stepped up and did great work.
Thanks.
So, I think a lot of that, not to pat our own backs, but we had a lot of difficulty with that jury. I mean, we knew when we saw 62 out of 65 people had their most important person in their life was either Donald Trump or Jesus Christ, which kind of tells you that you're going to have a tough jury.
That one was, but we didn't think we did bad. We did well, especially with our client, because the client
that was another thing that wasn't so great.
And that's really what did it in, because when we spoke to them afterwards, because sometimes juries will talk to you and other times they choose not to. But in this situation, the jury was really open. And the main thing, I mean, they thought we did great. They're like, oh, you did great. Yeah. And I'm like,
why did you jury? That's so hard to hear.
Why try another zero?
yeah. Another zero would have
been good.
But it was. We had client and jury problems together in that case.
Yeah, client jury problems. But then they didn't believe our client.
And neurologist problems.
And they didn't believe our neurologist. So we were in the elevator. Remember when after the juror that was released before the alternate that was released? So he didn't have to join in the decision. The first thing he said to us was, tell your client to get a new neurologist.
Yeah. And I told her that. Oh, no, we like her so much. I said, well, then, you're kind of buying into your own demise, because the jurors and if you listen to her, if you were in trial or you read her transcript, she was just not very helpful on the stand.
I couldn't believe it when she said that, because kind
of rude to the jury. I said, do you want to help the jury? She said, not really.
She was rude to the jury. She didn't want to go through and explain. She said it was like common sense. And and she just didn't do her patient any justice.
Yeah.
And I think that if she would have been different or would have been more cooperative, and she was paid to be there. So she was paid as an expert.
Paid handsomely. Yeah. And a big lesson learned there is I didn't have a choice in that case. I got in late. They called me a month before trial.
Oh, yeah.
Which happens a lot. But if you get in early enough, I would not have used her. You don't have to be stuck with a treater. I would have hired an expert, because I begged her at trial. I've never had to beg an expert like that. I said, would you please mind breaking this down so that I can understand it? And, the jury, we're not doctors, and I can tell you're super intelligent, but would you mind using Netter? It's a basic anatomy book, right? Yeah. So would you mind using Netter to describe it to the jury so we can kind of take it step by step? Now, Netter's too simple. That's embarrassing for me to use. I said, oh my God, come on. I said, so you don't want to help this jury? You want to help break it down for the jury? She said, not really. I was like, she was just so gruff.
At that point, and I know that you've jump into the cases towards sometimes at the end. And it's always great to have your own case from the beginning, because you get to work it up the way you are. You get to talk. I know how you work up cases, right? Because we've had cases from the beginning together. And so then, and we've done phenomenal on those cases.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
when you build your own team of experts,
when you're able to, and you're able to understand what's happened.
So you can educate the jury and put on, it's basically, I mean, I tell young lawyers this whenever I'm in a program, a workshop, whatever, is like, we are basically producers of a documentary of someone's life, no different than a true, other than the fact that Hollywood's full of a lot of fluff. And in court, you can't use fluff because jurors see right through it. But we are unfluffed directors of documentaries. And to do that, you've got to understand somebody's life to document it. How can you document somebody's life if you don't know it?
Sure.
And the experts help explain it at trial, which that treater would not help explain it. And if we would have known that, we could have got an expert.
And I think, by the time that you were asked to get involved in that case, I mean, all the deadlines were done.
You're basically stuck with what you got.
And so going in, we knew, especially because I was reading all the depositions and catching up, because I think I joined maybe
2 weeks.
Oh yeah, it was a week before.
Yeah. I had 2 or 3 more weeks than you did, but so I was cool that you jumped in because it was good to have another hand on deck because it was trying to deal with what we had, took a lot of creativity.
And like I said, I classify this a case as we won, but we lost. Like we won in the fact that we have a verdict in our favor. We lost in the fact that it wasn't what we anticipated, and hearing the jury say, well, we wanted to award this, but it was a Friday afternoon and we didn't want to fight. So we ended up going to, I don't know if they picked it out of a hat or I don't know what they did, but it was really it was kind of a little
fast after lunch.
It was kind of, they didn't want to stay till Monday, and one of the
Friday afternoon verdicts.
They didn't want to go. They didn't want to stay till come back on Monday, and one of the jurors had a flight to catch. I learned that later afterwards.
Yeah, so the things that impact juries.
I know.
But now, having talked about this and rethought the case, I think we did damn well.
I thought we did very well because I'm surprised that we got
what we had to work with.
I'm surprised we got anything at all. It's just we had anticipated that it was going to be where the jury, part of the jury was. They just lost to the fight. But so is there any advice that you would give a less experienced attorney when they take on a case from the beginning?
Anytime you don't feel like you would bet your house on a decision you're making, call somebody with more experience. That as a younger lawyer, I was always kind of scared too. One, it's kind of embarrassing. You don't want to admit, but be vulnerable because you know what? No, people don't hold it against you. I used to think, I can't admit that I don't know everything because then I'll look. Now, most lawyers appreciate you reaching out to them, and do it early and don't be afraid to partner up with somebody because a lot of times, if somebody's got resources.
Sure.
You take a case that you're going to get 500,000 on, but you hire somebody with more resources and ideas and experience, you get 5 million, and your split is still bigger than what you would have gotten before. Plus your client, the end goal is you get full justice. So I get riled up over this because when I was a young lawyer, I look back at my career and I admit there are probably cases that I didn't see the full value of because I didn't do what I'm talking about right now.
Sure. No, and it's just a learning experience. Now. In my career, I often have attorney so I want to do a lot more I do a lot more mentorship. I want to have that camaraderie. It's something that I know because I've been helped. Even how I ended up in AIEG, I was kind of guided into that group. How I ended up on their board, I got guided into that.
You're on the board now.
Yeah, I've been on.
Wow, I didn't know that.
For 2 years, I've been on
the
board.
Put on a tie or something.
Well, so it's cool because but I would have never heard of the group, and I kind of was pushed into they kind of.
That's a great group.
Yeah, it's a great group, and they've really taken me under their wing. And there's been, I'm surrounded by some giants like Julie Kane out of Florida, Julian Gomez out of Texas. You have all these greats, Terry McCartney, Russ Reiner. So they're all, and Don Slavic. So they're all there, and they're resources for me. So I want to do that. I want to give that back to less experienced attorneys and
keep the cycle going.
And so we've started the women's group, and that's what kind of I do. And so now attorneys come in and they'll ask me a question and say, hey, what do you think? Or which way do you, what do you think I should do? Or they'll ask me, hey, would you jump on a case with me? So now I'm jumping on cases and helping them, or
awesome.
I'll just, take time and say, hey, let's just look over it. Let's walk through it. I don't need to jump in on the case, but let's walk through it.
Yeah, sometimes you just give them some guidance and say, you don't need me right now.
Sure.
And if you need more advice later, give me. And I've had that with younger lawyers, and then something, I hate to bug you again. I said, no, you're not bugging me, man. I feel better that you're calling me because I feel like you're doing a better job for your client. And so I joined this group a few years ago, TL4J, as Trial Lawyers for Justice. And man, they are really a lot of people say we like to share and help other people, and the rising tide lifts all ships kind of. But in that motto there, the rising tide lifts all the boats, is they go overboard. Like, yeah, we want to share. What's your email address? They send you things that are like, oh my God, I just got the outline for how Nick Rowley picks juries, and you can't use exactly the way he does, but it's nice to know. And that's another thing, advice I give to young lawyers: don't get a transcript, and don't listen to a speaker. Gary Dordick has his way, but don't try to do it just like Gary Dordick, because you're not Gary Dordick.
Of course.
Which seems obvious, but you'd be surprised. Some people think, oh, I want to do it just like them. Yeah. Only if it works for you, and it's very unlikely it works for you just like them.
And I think that's, I was actually talking about that yesterday with someone, and I think it takes time to understand your voice, because now I've been practicing for 15 years, and I would say that it is just now that I'm starting to feel more comfortable in my own skin and kind of feel how, and I think it was once I hit my 40s where I just I got
no time to mess around.
I don't care anymore. So once I started hitting my 40s, I was like, okay, finding my stride, finding who I was, understanding what works for some people doesn't work for me, and it's okay to say no. Yeah, is kind of I think it happens with time.
In my first 15 years, I would never have. You start hanging out with older lawyers and sometimes, often in trial, you just get frustrated. Something's not going right. IT breaks down. Witness is late. And it's okay just to like take a deep breath and sigh and look at the jury and go, oh man, this is going to be so frustrated. Just be yourself, let the jury know you're frustrated, but don't get negative emotions. Don't be angry. I've seen a case where 3 seconds of anger blew a case. Not me, luckily, but I've watched the lawyer get angry. He got angry at his assistant. Sure. And it was like the jury watched him. Come on, do it. Oh, that negative energy.
Well, that's really important because juries watch everything. And that's another thing where they're watching and they're seeing how you're interacting with your team. They're watching how you're interacting with the court staff. Yeah. And I had a trial, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. And it was actually my first jury trial. And the other attorney we're both on the younger end and less experienced. But that other attorney was so nasty, like even when she called my office. So we just let her do her thing. She would make faces at the judge. Go at it. Make faces at the judge. Kind of throw a little tantrum. Would stomp her feet, and I'm like, oh man. And they see that.
And in their mind, they're being that badass lawyer they saw on TV that made them want to become a lawyer. I'm going to be a big no. Jurors aren't impressed by that. Then I tell jurors a trial is really two things we've been doing our whole life since second grade. It's a talent show. What other kind of show? Beauty pageant.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, not really superficial, skin deep beauty, but likability. So I'd say more like it's a talent show for the lawyers and a likability show for the clients. Sure. And a likability show for the lawyers and your team too. If you go into trial with a team with good energy and just kind people that love what they're doing, and the jury can tell you're just doing nothing but trying to seek justice, you got nothing to hide, you're almost going to always win that case, even if your facts aren't perfect. I had a case I saw, and they got a great verdict, but a team had a case against Union Oil, and causation wasn't perfect in the case. So some of the lawyers were like, oh, man.
For those who don't know what causation is, just quickly explain that.
That's true.
Okay.
Well, besides, we could say, yeah, that truck driver was driving too fast and he was negligent and careless, but did that cause my car to get hit by the wind and blow over, or was the hurricane and the connection? It's like, sure, you've got somebody who was careless and you've got injury, but then did that carelessness cause that injury? So you got to connect it. And that's the hard part a lot of times. You can get a yes on negligence, but no on causation.
On the causation
part. And I've seen that, but that's where you got to kind of dig in and some that in that case, 90% of the literature said there's no correlation between the contamination and the cancer that the client had. So some of the lawyers are going, 10, that they've got 90%, we only got 10%. We're gonna lose. But you know what? The jury was so upset with what Union Oil did that they went with that. They just instinctively, it's very guttural what jurors do, because they figure out what they think is right in their normal common sense, logic, everyday life. And then they take the jury instructions, the facts, and make it work through that paradigm. And that's what happened in that case, because I mean, we had an onslaught against us of all the literature, but the juries went with the smaller percent of literature because they liked the client. The client won the likability pageant, and the lawyers won the talent pageant. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling you, you can win. It used to boggle my mind a little bit until you just kind of get used to it. When I clerk for judges, I'd end a trial and I go through my 20 pages of notes, and then, Your Honor, I mean, remember this fact and this fact, and how'd they do this? How'd the jury? I was like just criticizing the heck out of the jury, and I kept looking up every 2 or 3 pages, and the judge is shaking his head, like, when I get done, he goes, Sean, you don't get it yet. I said, wait, he said, if a jury likes your client and the facts make any sense, they're going to do something for him. Yeah. And I thought, no. But now I realize he's right.
I recently,
20 years later, 30 years later.
It's true. I mean, it's so easy to lose a case if they don't like your client.
Yeah.
And you can't hide it. Too. I mean, you can't hide your client. And you can't, because it comes out, right? They can put on a face that they're not, but so you have to, I look at that now too, because that's a costly lesson.
In that trial, I heard a juror, and the jury kind of broke up into groups, and sure. Two came over to my car, and it was like, before I was getting in the car, I said, hey, we just want to wish you well, nothing about you as your client. I said, what do you mean? He said, your client came to trial to testify wearing a bun on top of her head, and that bun is not something you'd wear if you had migraines. And the whole thing in the case was these horrible migraines she got all the time. That was her big damage, is migraines, and the jurors thought you wouldn't wear that. And
she came in, and I remember sitting and watching. I'm like, why is she wearing that? And she had a bun in that stick.
Yeah.
And one of the jurors told me the same thing. That's something that they spoke about. Like, how bad could her headaches really be if she has it on her head?
And that's kind of likability, but it's more like believability.
Sure.
So believability and likability go hand in hand. And jurors have thought, wait a minute, even if we like her, we can't believe her because she's got this big bun sticking on top of her head, and she's claiming migraines.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So little things like that.
She also claimed that she had one right there on the stand. That she was having difficulty because she was like in a lot of pain. So, again, we did pretty well when you think about that. When you look at that, we did pretty well at the end of the day. But
when she wouldn't listen, I tried to talk to her. I tried to talk, and her husband is a lawyer, came to court like he just rolled out of bed. I don't know if you remember that day, but his hair, his suit.
I do. I did his direct.
I don't know how I look right now. I better be careful. But he came in, his suit coat was hanging off to one side. One hand was completely engulfed by the sleeve, and he walked in with his tie was over here. I said, God, did you get in a fight on the way to court today or something? He looked, but what can we do?
I know. You work with what you have. You give the instructions.
And I told the client was just as stubborn as her neurologist, who she refused to quit going to, even when jurors. And I said, your neurologist might be a little bit outdated. There's more current stuff. I talked to a neurologist who said they can get rid of your headaches. Isn't that what you want? And then the combination, and she was kind of gruff. I told her, I said, I wouldn't come into court being all angry and mad and forceful trying to prove your case, because you need to be a nice person first.
We met with her several times before, and
she was
she
not easy meetings. I remember a lot.
So we met with her a lot of times during that time, when we all hung out and lived in that hotel. So that was cool. It was. I think it was a good experience. I know that at the end, again, we won, but
she had moments of hope. Like so many clients, out of like 20 hours we spent with her over 5 sessions. There are times when she was you could see her beauty came out.
Yeah.
And you're like going, God, just be like this. Just be this. Is this a real you? She's so angry at the system and angry at the other driver.
I think she was frustrated. She was angry that she was going through this. She was angry that, and she couldn't handle that anger. If it would have been my case from the beginning, I think I would have had her in some type of counseling to deal with that anger, because really she was a nice lady. She just would get frustrated and she'd get short.
Yeah.
And I think it also dealt with the fact that she was going through all those headaches. And so having that chronic pain affects your mood.
Lack of sleep.
And it just,
lack of activity, missing her dogs. She was a huge dog lover.
Mm-hmm. But I know that you mentioned that you are on the way of writing a second book. And I asked you to bring your book that you recently wrote, Punitive Damages.
Yeah. That was, I'm writing a third book now, but it's not my own book. I wrote the Punitive Damage book by myself with help. I called people and talked to people and got input, but I'm the only author on it. But then I wrote a book 1 or 2 years ago called Winning Settlements. It's a 12 or 13 chapter book with each author writing a different chapter. So I wrote one chapter in that one, and that worked so well that Trial Guides called me again and said, hey, we're doing a similar book on winning discovery, how you use discovery techniques and everybody has kind of their own system for how you take discovery and package it for trial. So that's what really it all is about,
Sure.
like theories and techniques and formulas. Formulas for success is really what's in discovery.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Tell
Yeah.
us about the punitive damages book and how you ended up writing about
This is the one right here, and it's got they pick. It's interesting how the publisher picks. They got like the Monsanto and cigarettes and some of the bigger things nationally. I'm not involved in all those cases. I was involved in 2 or 3 of those. But yeah, it's been the subtitle is "The Lawyer's Tool for Shaping Society," which is and John Romano and his son Eric were cool enough to write a foreword on it because John Romano's real passionate about trying to curb this corporate behavior that's just gotten so rampant. And now it's going to get worse. I mean, we've never had since the 1920s, maybe, when the Carnegies and Rockefellers were basically taking over Washington, D.C. Now we've got Facebook and Amazon, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, and then this Vice President Musk are just kind of taking over. If this isn't the most obvious oligarchy we've had where corporations are running the show, and when corporations run the show, we don't do well in the legislative, the statutes don't go our way very well.
Well, yes, and that's why as attorneys, we should be mindful and become involved in our legislation to make sure that you are aware of what's coming up and get involved in order to stop. I know that there's been some initiatives in Georgia and Wisconsin. I know that there's whispers about. I mean, Arizona, there was a recent one. So yes, being mindful and getting involved. Because otherwise, we're just watching.
And anybody that's not seeing how it's working is basically there's lobbyists and legislators that all go to dinner together and talk about laws and what needs to be done. And when you have billions of dollars getting paid to a lobbyist or a legislator to do something, that's going to be more forceful than our hundreds of thousands or millions. That it's kind of like that. We have a hard time competing with insurance companies and Amazons and Facebooks when it comes to bribing or enticing or persuading the lobbyists that are, and that turns into law in the books, which makes it harder for us to represent our clients because you pick up the books here in California and it's Illinois, that's probably the same in Arizona. Wow, why is there such a big, thick section that protect insurance companies? Oh, because insurance companies have lots of money. Oh, wow, the doctors sure have a lot of protection. Oh, because Columbia and Kaiser, the biggest, wealthiest organizations in the country, have control over the laws. You hardly find any sections that protect the people.
Well, I think that's what makes at least plaintiffs lawyers. So we're the David, right, fighting the Goliath.
Yeah,
that's what we are. We're the person that's going for the underdog, fighting these big insurance companies, fighting these corporations, and making a difference. Now, I know that there was a number of about verdicts that got you where you were with the punitive damages. And how did you tell us about one of them and tell us how you were able to successfully get a large punitive damage claim granted?
Yeah, the whole thing, this book was all the result of fortuity. My whole career just very fortuitously fell into punitive damage cases. And it was because I had young kids and I had to take whatever came through, the old door law or toaster law, whatever popped up. Yeah. So, somebody come in and say, I don't know, I've never done a sexual harassment case before, but something ain't right. And if there's a wrong, there's a remedy. I've been working for the courts for 3 years as a young lawyer. And so you kind of learn it from working, reading case law all day for 3 years and watching trials and talking to judges every day. I started, if there's a wrong, there's usually a remedy. So people come in and I say, oh my God, they coerced you. The guy came and told me that his employer forced him to confess to something he didn't do. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Who does that? But then when he showed me what happened, and they basically make these false promises of leniency and you can keep your job when they know for a fact when you sign that confession they coerce you into, the first 2 things that happen is they call the police and you're fired. It's a complete lie. And there's only one training company, Wicklander Zalowski in Chicago, West Suburban Chicago, Aurora now, I think, that trains them. And they basically train them to buddy up to them first, make them think, get them to trust you so you can really get it. It's a whole 200-page manual on how to really screw somebody's head up and make them to confess to something they didn't do.
Wow.
Now, there are some people that confess to something they did do.
Sure.
But when you hit these too many people that didn't do something, and after you do it, man, you're shamed. You don't want to tell anybody. You think, oh my God, how can this happen? I only confessed because they promised me I could keep my job and I wouldn't get arrested. Now I confess and I get arrested and I lose my job. You spin your head around. I thought, this doesn't. And when I got an award for that case, one of my first punitive damage cases back in 1990, people came up and congratulated me and said, man, I would have sent that guy to small claims.
Wow.
And we got $7.5 million verdict. When it was just a case that walked in and I thought, man, I don't know. And I didn't sign the case up. I said, first of all, have you applied for unemployment benefits yet? He said, no, I'm in the process right now, though. I said, have you had a hearing yet? He said, no. I said, well, when that hearing comes up, I want to go to it and see what these guys look like. Because I just want to get a feel. And bam, as soon as I went in that room, I said, these guys are thugs. They're wannabe cops. They couldn't pass the test. They had either drug problems or felony problems. They couldn't get on a police force. So they become a security guard. And they're, oh man, I'm going to make up for not being a cop, and I'm going to whoop the shit out of some people. They really, like, for instance, I remember I couldn't sit still. I tried, but it's hard to, I asked the security, one of the enforcers, I said, so you interview people. I said, what percentage of people end up confessing at the end of your interviews? And I was going to say 60 or 70, because in the CIA, you get 30 or 40 is high, right? Okay. And in FBI, CIA, get like, and so when I asked him, I said, so what percentage of your victims? He goes, victims are not. I said, well, what percentage of employees that you interview? They call them interviews, not confessions, not interrogations. Like I said, in your interrogations, we don't interrogate. I'm like, and their manual says interrogation manual. But anyway, they didn't like it when I made them. They give up that manual. They tried to, confidentiality, privacy. I said no. So I subpoenaed it from the manufacturer of the manual through Zalowski. Yeah. So I signed up for a course, and anyway, so anyway, the guy's telling you stuff like that. I went in that room, and then I said, you know what? I'll take your case, because these guys are.
What was the percentage of that they get?
Oh,
I want to know.
I lost. I didn't want to go back to where I had to sit there across the table from him and believe this. But I said, so I won't call them victims. So when you interview, not interrogate, when you interview an employee, what percentage of the employees end up confessing to doing something wrong after your interview? He goes, about 98%.
Wow.
And I said, oh, only 98%. I said, well, what happens to the other 2%? He goes, they get away. Like he's all angry, like, oh, I want 100%. And then I found out that certain companies have incentives for the best batter on the team, the guy with the highest percentage of confessions. It's like incentivize them to get those confessions, so they get in there and keep pushing and pushing and not give up. One guy I was like probably 35 or 40 of these victims now, from Lowe's, Home Depot, Ralph's, any box store, AutoZone, all the auto parts stores, all Michael's, all have the same thing. They're trained by the same company, and not all of them are quite as aggressive, because the manual doesn't come out and tell you to do that. In fact, the manual, I think, says it's illegal to threaten arrest, but then at the trainings, they say, sometimes it's helpful to persuade. I've had people who say, like past employees who will speak out when they're not working there anymore, say, yeah, at the training sessions, they say some things that aren't quite in the manual. Or
they also, with an incentive program, kind of lead. It may say, don't do this, but when they're promoting it or persuading it and then incentivizing that behavior, of course, it's going to lead to that. So you were able to figure that all out and had your first punitive damage case.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I had an insurance bad faith case that went big, and got a big punitive damage, like a $16 or $18 million. And then we had sexual harassment case with punitives, and we had a real estate fraud case with punitives, then we had a dog case with punitives, and we had a drunk driver case with punitives. So all of a sudden I'm getting like 12, 14, 15 different kinds of cases. And I start thinking, God, as far as civil cases get tried, securities usually go before the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, and go through different, and those are typically fraudulent and they can be punitive. But as far as any kind of case you can name that gets tried in front of a civil jury, I think we tried, had a punitive damage case in all different varieties.
Wow, that says a lot.
A bunch in employment. We had probably 5 or 6 in employment. They're not all different areas, but I think we filled all the different areas with at least 1 or 2. And, we had a couple of bad faith insurance cases. Those are pretty disgusting to get deep into. When you start getting down to the bowels of an insurance company, there's equally nasty shit going on there. Yeah. There's incentives.
I'm in the process of one right now, so I completely understand and how much they try to hold that information from you too.
Deflect, deny, and defend.
Yeah. Well, yes.
And they do all 3 aggressively.
So today you're speaking actually at the same time as I'm speaking. We're both speaking. I know. So you'll be speaking today on AI and the courtroom.
Well, it's really how things are changing now in jury selection. We're saying how to pick a jury in the modern age, with bigger damages, with punitive damages, and with AI. Mainly AI, because AI is the biggest changes going on. Because now, for a long time, we thought you can't do focus groups and figure out the value of your case. Because you do 3 or 4 focus groups, you get numbers all across the board. But now they're figuring out if you do 1,000 people or more, like a jury ball type thing, then you can actually get a pretty accurate and people are actually asking for it. Trial lawyers are asking for the same exact number you're getting from jury ball, and they're getting it from juries because you're figuring if 1,000 potential jurors tell you what they think the value is, you can usually narrow it. It's a pretty good average. And so things are changing. And now they're getting like just background checks with AI are faster. There's so much on the fly during jury selection because you know sometimes you don't have time. In Houston, I tried a case down there. They give you a big book with the background check and all, you know, history and everything of the record, voting records, or party records and everything. But you don't have time to read it. They give it to you the morning you're picking a jury. I said, I'm on my feet picking a jury. What am I supposed to do with that? You can't sit there and read it for 20 minutes and ask a question and read for 20, there isn't any time. Right. And so
depending on your jurisdiction. Yeah.
And so now we're trying to address things like that. Like how can AI help get you the information you need faster? Yeah. And just then you feed, it used to be your office would, you take a screenshot of your jury pool. They'd start looking them up on Facebook and social media and Instagram and things. And then they'd send you'd hope you didn't get caught taking pictures of it in the courtrum, and you send it to your office right away.
You should be saying
and you have 4 people at your office taking 15 names each and starting to do the search on them. Now when you do that, the AI will do that search for you, and then they'll take the person's profile on Facebook and run it through AI to synthesize who they are for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty,
I wish I could be there today.
It's pretty amazing on the fly. Yeah. And I'm actually learning more. We're putting on the program with some vendors we work with. And we've been learning more. Just when I've spent 8 or 10 hours preparing for this today, I've learned a bunch more new stuff.
Wow,
and I'll probably learn more stuff today because it's just stuff it's kind of like, by comparison, how now if you're into the trucking world at all, I know you some trucking cases too, and they've gotten to where before it was like at 5 miles an hour, the software could make it so you couldn't get an accident. Then they went to 15 miles an hour with forward-facing cameras that auto stop your car. And now they're to like 30 or 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And you know what their goal is to get 70. If you can get to 70 miles an hour so you can't hit somebody, your camera will make your car stop on purpose or unconsciously without you, if you fall asleep, for example.
Sure.
And that in a truck driving world with fatigued drivers, to have trucks that can't hit somebody up to 70 miles an hour is going to be like, wow. Yeah. I mean, we're putting ourselves out of business, but you know what?
If it saves lives, it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. There's always going to be some type of work for us.
Yeah,
and
that's what I say.
So saving lives is better.
I've had a few horrible occasions in my career where a lawyer said to me, I said, I'd go to site inspection or a deposition or something. I'd cover it for him. I come back and say, hey man, your client seems to be doing really well. And he said, oh, really? Oh shit. I had a great crash. And I said, did you just hear yourself? You're upset because your client's doing well because it's going to put less money in your pocket, man. You're in the wrong business.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate.
But I've had 2 of those that stick out in my mind. I won't name any names, but one I share in space when I moved out a couple weeks later, as soon as I
really?
Yeah, it's just being around that kind of energy.
You don't need it.
So,
I agree with
so
you.
contrary to the way we think.
We're similar in the way that we think when it comes to people and how humans and behavior. So, I mean, that's why we get along so well. So I know that you have to prepare for your presentation. And if
I stay here, I can just miss it.
We'll both miss it. But I want to ask you, what I've been doing is I've been asking 3 questions of all of my guests towards the end. They didn't tell you. It's a little bit of a surprise. But they're not hard. So you ready for the questions?
Whew, I walk into a trap. How would I know? I haven't heard them yet. But yeah, I guess go ahead. Fire away and I'll see what I can do.
So what is one valuable lesson that you've learned from your childhood and where you grew up that you put into practice today as an adult and an attorney?
Oh, man. Yeah. You talk about parents and childhood and stuff, and I get choked up, but I'm not trying to. I try to keep breathing, but my dad used to sing a song when I was little. My middle name's Sean Daniels. He said, Sean Dan, the fighting man, fight all day, just earn his pay. And I never really knew what he meant until I got older. And I said, Dad, you ever seen that song? And he said, man, as a little kid, you had a sister. My sister Erin's my Irish twin. We had 7 kids, 6 siblings. And we lived in a rough neighborhood. We were housing projects. My dad was still in med school. So it was pretty rough and tough. People just for fun. You grew up
in the Cabrini Greens, right?
Yeah. And sometimes people would just throw a bottle or a rock at somebody just because they needed something to change or some action, or they'd get angry. They'd want to take out some anger on somebody. They hadn't had a shower or a bath for 3 or 4 days. They got flies buzzing around them. They're itchy, and just stuff happens when people get that way. The homelessness, just above homelessness, really. Right. Anyway, so I asked him, and he told me, he said, people used to beat up on your sister. And he said, and if you look a lot of pictures of you as a young kid, you'll see you have two fists. You're sitting there and just with family pictures. I got my fists made because it was just a lifestyle. And it really, I mean, it was sad. I'm not saying I'm glad about the lifestyle I had then, but it taught me how to fight.
Yeah.
So the
I'm
trying to, but no, sometimes, 2 a.m, your client's asleep and your partner's asleep and you're at the office alone. It's not easy sometimes,
No, I know. And I know you fight. And I know we've also preparing for depositions. We've stayed up till like in my office.
Yeah.
When you came over, I picked you up from the airport, you drove right to my office. Or you took a cab to my office and we stayed there till like past midnight trying to get ready for the next day, making sure that we had everything.
And during trial, I always try to get to bed by midnight, but it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't.
Because if there's work to do, that drive, that passion,
you wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep thinking about it. You wake up thinking about it, and that's the whole thing. That's that fighting spirit that not everyone has, and I think it's something that's valuable. And I think that adversity that you had growing up, or the adversity that I had growing up, I think it really instills that fighting, that not afraid to take on Goliath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I get emotional, just to try to justify my emotional instability, is my dad is really my mentor in that regard. And that's who I'm thinking about. He's not with us anymore, but he, I'll try it. This so blows my mind. We're a bunch of little kids and, two bedroom housing project. And my mom would take us to the front door with my dad and say, "Okay, honey, good luck." Go, and he'd kiss my dad goodbye and then pull us away. We didn't know that it was a fake job, because what really was going on was my dad would come back in. They gutted the little, 2 foot or 3 foot hall closet where you put and they turned that into a little desk and office for my dad. He'd go in this little closet and study for the medical boards and stuff at night.
Oh, wow.
So whenever I get a little tired, I think, shit, man, I'm not in a little closet trying to raise kids going through med school. I think about that.
Wow. That's
hard
powerful.
not to have a guy like that be your hero,
Yeah.
And I remember building fences with him. We'd be out in the hot sun in farm days later. And these aren't tears. I'm not sad. I'm not really happy, because I envision building a fence and stuff. And I go, man, I'm tired. He goes, get a drink of water. We're not finished till we get down. We got 10 more lengths to go, 10 more posts to go. And we'll stop when we're finished. Wow. It's kind of that mentality of, you don't quit till the work's done. And sometimes it kills you, because the longest I've gone is 6 nights in a row without sleeping when I was a younger lawyer trying cases. And I was like, well, man, it was just, you start, I want to get to bed at midnight. How about 1 o'clock? How about 2 o'clock? How about 3 o'clock? Shit, now it's 4 o'clock. Well, I'll just keep working. Yeah. So no, and my dad, it's just, God, and he worked, I'd get up doing paper routes at 6 or 7 in the morning, get my bundle of papers, I'd be folding them and get ready to throw them on my bike and stuff. He'd come home from the hospital and done up delivering babies all night. And I say, "Hey, Dad, how was your night? How many babies did you deliver?" He goes, "Oh, 3 little fillies and 2 little colts." We were into horses too, so they call the girls fillies and boys colts. And my first son was named Colton, and Nick's name was Colt. Yeah, just a lot of I have a lot of love in my family.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Irish Catholic, and when you're raised from humble beginnings like that, it makes your family really tight.
Sure. And I know your daughter, and now you have the blessing of working with her. So,
oh man, that's another.
I
get me emotional again.
No, I don't mean to get you emotional. So I'll take you to question 2. Question 2.
Tears of joy.
And it's something to be proud of. Question 2 is, what is your proudest personal moment?
Oh, in law?
Personal moment. You can do a professional or personal if you like.
Man, I guess I'm really fortunate, because I can't think of them. I have so many.
Good.
But I'll try to think of one. I'll try to pick one out at this moment. I guess the time in Chicago when I passed Lance Armstrong on my bike.
Yeah.
Because he had a flat tire. I just kissed her. It was during it was 1988 to 1989. We're racing in the United States Triathlon Series. It goes from like 14 or 15 different cities. And no, it wasn't. I'd beat him in the swim. And then I just knew it was a matter of time before he'd pass me on the bike. And that day, right after he passed me on Michigan Avenue, I'll never forget it. He got a flat. I saw his back tire start squirreling out, and I actually stopped to watch, because he threw his bike in the boulevard and picked it up and threw it down and kicked it and stuff. I was watching. It was like one of those things. But that was one of my, kind of weird, proud moments.
Sure. No, and I love that story. It's a great story.
Just kind of like to think, hey, you know what? I beat Lance Armstrong that day.
You did.
Just leave out the flat part.
Yeah.
No. And I've had, some trials that were just like out of the hat. Hard to pick one, because I've had some trials that were uphill battles. Nobody would have tried the case. And I said, you know what? I want the experience. If I get my ass kicked, I get my ass kicked. And I won a few of them, you know?
Yeah.
Just, if it not, you know, some just won, a couple had won big, and people go, how the hell did you win that case?
Yeah.
So,
that's something to be proud of too.
Yeah. And I started telling them, I said, you know, sometimes you don't try your case first. You put the defendant on trial so that if you have an unlikable plaintiff, they go last, and you already have the jury so upset with the defendant that they give your client a lot of latitude because they don't want to, there's not enough to change them from already being angry at the defendant. I started as a defense lawyer after I worked for the courts for 3 years. I worked for a defense firm, and they said, oh, you always put your client on first. The jury wants to hear from your client because that's who is going to ask them for money. So you always have to put your client on first. No. I never put my client on first anymore. Very rarely. I can't remember the last time I did. I have a sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination case coming up in Sacramento in a couple of July. Mm-hmm. I might put that client on first because she's just like, whoa, like a hard not to love client.
Sure.
But rare occasions normally. And so anyway, I tell people, like, put the you know, they say, how'd you win that case? It was your client was just said, I didn't put my client. It wasn't about my client. It was about the defendant. Make the case about the defendant.
Sure. And that's proud. That's a proud achievement. Yeah. Something to be achievement you should be proud of.
So the defendants who did something wrong.
Yeah.
And then your client just got damaged by it. So then it's pretty much all your clients do is talk about damages. All your liability has been established. Liability and causation are through the defendant and through your supporting actors and actresses in your documentary. Mm-hmm. And then when you put your star witness on last, the jury's already heard the story. And she just has to be, well, the jury's already heard, and you can testify that. You can question your witness easier. Say, now the jury's already heard about this and this, but can you tell us a little more about this? You kind of taper their testimony and reiterate what the jury's already heard. So you don't have to have them go through it all again. Sure. So anyway, just little things you learn over the years. And
then our third and final question.
All right.
Is if you could have one meal anywhere in the world, don't think of no time or something, but it's only one, what would that meal be?
Oh my God.
It's kind of harder than, right? They're easy, but they're hard a little bit.
So it could be like a picnic on a jungle hill and
it's your meal.
Bali or Costa Rica.
It can be a peanut butter jelly sandwich. It's whatever you would be your one meal.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe just what came to mind now is maybe Shaun White, great snowboarder. And I've been really enjoying a lot of snowboarding lately. And this year was great. I had 5 trips and all 5 had powder, which is unheard of.
Okay.
A lot of years I go once or twice and no powder. But anyway, if I could just be like up on the top of a mountain, sipping a Red Bull and eating a PBJ with Shaun White and just talking to him about just something, you know, I could be in Costa Rica with Michael Jordan and some jungle too. And just that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because last night I would have told you right downstairs, we walked over to Nobu, where we met Amy a couple of years ago. And, we walked by Morton's on the way, and I said, well, I thought Morton's was closing, but they ain't closing. I could smell that steak. I was like,
we did too. We almost went in and we didn't get a chance to. We went to another restaurant.
Morton's like a block and a half away, and I walked by there. I was like, that smell. And I was like, no. So right now, Morton's is sounding pretty good. So,
well, thank you so much.
I
appreciate you being here. Thank you for talking with me today, and for all of our viewers. Until next time.
My pleasure.
Bye.